Our special guest right now is BCBA, Board Certified Behavior Analyst, Angela Persicke. When I think about my life earlier, if somebody had said BCBA, I had no idea what they're talking about. Now it's a part of my everyday language. But just for those of you who don't know, Board Certified Behavior Analyst, it's quite a title. And we look to BCBAs to help us frequently when we've got a child on the autism spectrum. They, not all BCBAs are skilled with autism. They're skilled with ABA. We want to make sure that we're working with BCBAs who have experience with autism.
Yes.
Just want to throw that little disclaimer in there. But you are a very skilled BCBA who has worked extensively with children on the autism spectrum. So we're thrilled to have you here. One of the things that we talk about from time to time are social skills. It's a big topic in the field of autism. And, you know, I hear parents talking about it all the time. It's something that it's going to affect all of our kids on the spectrum. Whatever age, whatever their ability, their social skills could be stronger. And recently I heard somebody say, well, I just don't know, can that stuff really be worked on? That they felt like they, with the kinds of things that they were doing, which wasn't ABA, by the way, they weren't having success. So talk to me a little bit about the fact that you can, with ABA, right? To have success with teaching social skills.
Yes, especially the skills curriculum. It includes a whole social curriculum within a social domain. And it starts at what we were just talking about, eye contact, and moves all the way into conversational exchanges, how to know when to end a conversation, which is...
I can't do it.
Yeah, yeah, very difficult. And into, you know, it kind of overlaps a little bit with perspective taking and understanding other people. And so everything involved in learning to be a social being, we teach every single day. And yes, a lot of people say, no, you can't teach that unless, you know, the child is learning from their environment, from other people and picking up on those skills. They can't teach it, but you can. But it is very difficult. There are so many levels of complexity, and what we've talked about every single time, and, you know, this fine line between what is appropriate and what isn't appropriate, and what, you know, individuals that are typically developing just pick up from their environment and from seeing other people. Individuals with autism don't necessarily do that. And there is this social reinforcement that we were just talking about that you have to condition almost, because individuals with autism aren't necessarily reinforced socially. That's not reinforcing to them to engage with other people. You'll see this a lot. Sometimes they just want to sit by themselves and play with the toys themselves instead of engaging with other people. Where you know, an individual without autism at, you know, the age of 1 will start interacting with others in their environment. Even before that, start making bids for joint attention, looking at mom and looking at something else that they want. And so this is something that, you know, starts very early. And even when children come in very early, 18 months, and may be at risk for autism. Some people who give diagnoses, some psychologists, are weary to give a diagnosis that young, but you see the red flags. And you'll see that the child is not making these social bids that a typical child would. And we talk about that more, that social interactions are just not reinforcing for the child in some way or another. So but we teach these skills starting at that age, even starting with making eye contact and looking at an object that the child wants and then looking back. And initially, if a child is that young, coming into our program, we start with these very, very basic skills.
Yeah. It's so amazing to me because when my son was diagnosed, he was 2.5, and we had a period of time where he had been developing typically, or so they said, and he had language and all of those different things. But as I pick it apart from time to time, when I want to walk down crazy land, and I do, like any other parent, about what happened when and how did this all come about, it's interesting to me how I learn more and more about it. And there was an incident a couple of months ago. We were at Disneyland, and I don't know that it's important, but there's a ride where after you go on it, you can stand in line and you type in your email address, and they send you a picture of you on the ride. And my son loves this. We all find it very reinforcing to check our scores and to see how ridiculously we look in the picture. So we stand in the line. And we were standing there in the line, and I was watching a mom 2 lines over stand there with her daughter, who was somewhere between 1 year and 2 years old. And I was watching what happened, and she wasn't holding on to the little girl at all. The little girl was standing there next to her, and she kept looking up at her mom. And then her mom would look at her watch or look at her phone or whatever, and the little girl would notice what the mom was looking at. And then the mom would look at the screen as the line would move, but the little girl and she was noticing her environment, and she kept checking in with her mom. And she wasn't holding on to the little girl. And I remembered thinking, what? And just watching this interaction and realizing that even when my son had language, that wasn't happening. That wasn't happening. My child, because right next to that is a gift shop with toys and bins out. My child would have run off the ride, and I would have been running after him. He might have stopped for a second at the toys, but he would have been out the door and just been running. And we always said, well, he's a busy pants. That was our expression. Well, he's a busy pants. And he was very attached to me. He loved to be held. But if I wasn't holding him up, like just holding hand, he was gone.
Yeah, and that's something that you see right away from a very young age, and a lot of parents won't notice it because maybe that's the only child. You say, oh, he's just so busy, he's into his toys, his attention is all over the place, something like that, until you send the child to preschool, and you see the child with other children interacting or not. And that's why we see a lot of times children not even coming in for a diagnosis until they're in preschool or kindergarten.
Yeah, absolutely. We got a couple of questions that came in. Okay, let's take this one first. The question is, I'm going to show this to our audience at home. I want so much to use social teachable moments to help my child, but I don't want to constantly correct in public. I'm so with you on this. It's a fine line to know when to intervene and when not to. He's 10 years old and mainstreamed. I feel this too, that sometimes I just feel like I pick at him and pick at him and pick at him when we're in a social situation. And one of the things, and I want to hear your opinion on this too, Angela, one of the things that when we used to go to birthday parties and we would take a therapist with us, they were as much talking to me as they were to my child, and saying to me, before we got there, let's have 1 or 2 social goals to have. Let's set the criteria, and everything else less important this time. Sometimes that means missing an opportunity in this particular interaction. It'll come up again. But having our goals to know whether or not we were successful.
Yeah, that's perfect, because in those situations, birthday parties or out in public at a park, there are so many social interactions that occur, and if you don't have goals, you will feel like you're picking on your child the whole time. And what will probably happen too is you'll place a lot of demands on your child, and your child will try to escape those demands. And you have to build in the goals and the reinforcers too. It's so important to just not keep prompting and reminding your child, but to also give them the reinforcers when they are performing the skill correctly, or when you see the child make eye contact with his peers when they're talking, or go up to a peer and ask them to play, or ask him or her to play, anything like that. You want to give a reinforcer for that, because if you don't, it just feels like a lot of demands and without getting anything out of it.
Sure.
And of course, because there are so many deficits in social skills, just interacting with the peer may not be reinforcing to the child.
Absolutely.
So you have to build in those reinforcers, and back to maintaining progress,
right.
to condition the social aspects of this into reinforcers as well.
And you may have already said this, but because I was thinking at the same time, but also with the reinforcement, sometimes in the social situation, if we tell them beforehand, here's the expectation, and give the reinforcer afterwards, that there's some sort of token economy or some sort of sign saying, you got this sticker, if you're able to do this with the friend, then we're going to go do this afterwards or whatever it is. It doesn't have to be the reinforcement right then if you have some sort of signal or token economy or something.
And this is always difficult for parents too, because it feels very unnatural.
Yeah.
But you have to remember, what is good for your child and what will help your child in this situation.
Absolutely. So I'm going to mark that one complete. And then the other comment that was sent in that I think is really helpful and I want to address briefly if we can, would it be possible to show a video of ABA being used at home with an older child like you've done with the A word, but with older kids? And we actually, in the skills program, they continue to create videos for the different individual lessons. So all of them don't have a video attached yet, but there are some, especially for the older type executive function and cognition skills, where they actually show them working with older children. And we have access to a couple of those as well here. I can think of one video that they were doing with the white lies, and they were playing the game and it's older kids, trying to teach them. So we'll scare some of those up, and in the coming episodes we'll show some of those.
Yeah, I believe in the skills system they have videos, maybe up to about an 8-year-old.
Yeah.
They have for older children. That's in the skills system, but I'm sure there are some videos out
and I can
there.
think of at least one that's about 8 or 9-year-old, and we'll also put in a request for that as well, ongoing, that's what you guys would like to see. We so appreciate when you guys tell us what you need. And that's a really good point.
That's great.
All right, so we've talked a little bit about social skills. We could talk about it forever, but at least a little bit for right now.